Mindsets are often thought of as being a defining feature of a top player, and the topic most often requested is this very subject. But more often than not, people are missing the forest for the trees because mind is part of a greater aspect that I prefer to generalize as conditioning. Conditioning falls into several territories, with each territory branching off into more specific areas. The larger concepts include intra-game environmental conditioning, self-conditioning, extra-game environmental conditioning, and interpersonal conditioning. Intra-game environmental conditioning is essentially the conditioning of the game as addressed by the official game rules. This includes relatively static values such as time limits, damage ratios, and the like, along with gameplay values such as zoning, character matchups, etc., etc. The former aspect of this is essentially decided and set by the tournament organizers, and the latter aspect is decided and set between players. I still have a lot of thinking and learning to understanding zoning, as it's a core gaming skill and I'm fairly lacking in this area, but I definitely intend to address it in the future when I feel that I have a better grasp on it. Self-conditioning is probably the most accessible of the territories because while many circumstances in life are just so, the area that any person has the most power to control and master is their own body and mind. To be more specific, self-conditioning involves the physical health of your body, such as how rested, fed, and fit your body is. The stereotypical idea of a mindset, which is perspective and such, and I'll address this separately down the road, but in the meantime, back to what I was saying, it matters how educated and practiced you are for your match. It's largely self-preparation. Extra game environmental conditioning often comes into play alongside the other territories and, along with self-conditioning, comes into action at every phase of your performance in both life and tournaments. This skill includes individual actions from assuring that you have a controller that allows you to play at your best to making sure that you have the money to enter events and reliable transportation to bring you to those events. You have to make sure that you get there on time, and you have to make sure that you stay at the event and hear your matches called. This territory crosses into interpersonal conditioning through the skill area known as gamesmanship. Now, gamesmanship is a personal favorite topic of mine, although I am not particularly fond of discussing it due to certain past experiences. This is especially because it involves other philosophical fields such as ethics and often invokes particularly emotional arguments as a result. I will make an introduction later, but for the most part, I'm just not looking into getting into it. Finally, we come to interpersonal conditioning, which is more commonly referred to by match commentary as just conditioning. This is where the two-player game resides and arguably carries into team play. It really depends on your philosophy on the subject of Devils and other team events such as League of Legends, but I personally feel that it pretty much just stays in the 2v2 game. Interpersonal conditioning is where recognition of your own patterns and your opponent's patterns and habits, while also predicting how these two patterns evolve and will change as they interact with one another. This territory then mixes back into self-conditioning as you alter your behavior to affect your opponents so that their actions lead to a situation that you choose. This requires the skill for you to judge what results will form from these patterns mixing and how you can alter your behavior's mix to create a situation that's most beneficial for you, both in the present and in the future. Now, this also comes to another topic where you have to decide whether it's more important to set up for the present than for the future. However, these two are very arguable, and it's a very philosophical argument that I would say. In Florida, the two players who originally introduced me to this concept are Afro Thunda and Sabrick, who both believe that you should always go for the optimal present punish and that you should set up for a stronger punish in the future, respectively. Now, I think that this differs in which game you're playing. I personally tend to look toward the latter because especially since my main game right now is Smash 4, where taking a stock is a very set apart aspect of the match in terms of how the match tends to flow. So in Melee, I feel that the former approach tends to be more powerful, since individual hits are less important in that game in terms of how they flow into the rest, because getting a smaller hit tends to lead into many more hits. I apologize if this video was too long or feels incomplete. The original outline that I wrote for this, along with a large number of others, was corrupted, and then my mic was ruined, and since then I got my PC fixed and I'm just using my webcam's microphone, but I basically Roth wrote it, so as a result the vocabulary that I'm using is a bit more obtuse than I usually mean it to be, and honestly I'm never entirely happy with my video, but I was very happy with how I originally made this video, and less so now. In the meantime, I'm Tony, and I'll definitely be back into making videos now that I have everything up and going. I look forward to seeing you guys later, and I hope everyone has a great day.